I first heard Mariah Pereira, better known as Poppy, before anyone really knew either of those names. But I didn't hear her again until after she had already become a viral sensation. The first time was when Spotify Discover Weekly'd me Epic's 2013 track Hide and Seek, which is probably my favorite song of that name almost entirely as a result of her catchy as heck hook. The next time was a few years later because she was the subject of an episode of Film Theory. I'd actually seen her face in my subscription feed about a month earlier on the Fine Brothers channel for the first of what would become a series of related episodes on Kids React. But I don't watch Kids React because I don't even kind of care what children think about literally anything. In any case, Poppy had been on YouTube at that point for over 2 years, and her output had become more prolific and bizarre, hence all of the videos, which were about this cultish grand scheme that the character was a part of, seemingly masterminded by one Titanic Sinclair. At that point, she had one EP out, Bubble Bath, which is not actually on the regular Poppy Spotify page, but rather the That Poppy one. So if hearing about this is making you nostalgic for the absolute banger that is Low Life, which perhaps somewhat awkwardly remains by far her most popular song on the platform, that's where to find it. And, Bubble Bath showed promise as a tonally cynical but musically upbeat view of the pop industry, and in general was just a set of catchy tracks. So I counted myself as a fan, even if I only sometimes watched her YouTube videos. But then she went on tour to support her debut album, poppy.computer, and I knew I had to be there. I was a little bit sad that she didn't play Low Life, but I had a great time. Certainly it was among the more memorable shows I've attended. I came in with the Doors and was subjected to 60 genuinely hilarious minutes of Toto's Africa on repeat before the opener came on. The opener being Charlotte the Mannequin, a literal mannequin sitting at a DJ board and playing an extended set of remixed pop hits. It was a strange and damning critique of a certain type of performance. Obviously, a DJ has to make sure that a proper playlist flows together, which is a genuinely difficult thing to do, and I have a lot of respect for people who can do that. But the actual performance part seems to now be more about hyping folks up. The last time I remember having a DJ really inject himself into the music was at a hostel nightclub in Prague, as he added random sounds to the tracks in ways that only diminished my enjoyment of them. Really, I'd have preferred a mannequin. Charlotte was accompanied by hypnotic and illuminatic imagery projected onto the stage, which only became more intense once Poppy herself appeared. The cult in a literal sense aspect of the whole thing was something I actually enjoyed, particularly when seeing people who weren't a part of it kind of freaking out over the whole thing. Before performing the song Interweb, Poppy just started the na 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 na, and the crowd finished the chant and then repeated it several more times. A woman next to me, clearly unfamiliar with the whole thing, whispered to her partner, "What the fuck is going on?" I giggled. But things have changed a lot since poppy.computer. In fact, just a couple of months ago, Poppy announced the split from longtime collaborator and alleged abuser Titanic Sinclair, putting out an extremely sad statement about the way that he had manipulated her while they were working together. The whole thing is much more complicated than that, and there are plenty of videos and articles that delve into it further. But I think it's worth noting that the musical changes that I'm going to be focusing on here are not a result of that. Sinclair is credited on every song from her latest album, I Disagree. Whether it was his idea or not, he was definitely there for it. I missed the Am I a Girl tour, but seeing some videos on YouTube showed that it was more similar to poppy.computer than not. Even so, the album it was presenting signaled a pretty serious shift, specifically in its back half. A third of the way into the seemingly traditional pop track Hard Feelings, we hear the start of what sounds like a rock guitar. But it stops itself, only to come back in for a full-on solo in the final minute, matched with some heavier drums. Poppy generally ignores it here, either not singing at all or just continuing to do the same thing that she was doing before. The title track, my favorite on the album, turns to a rockier type of pop with some guitars and drums beneath it, which is immediately followed by her Grimes collaboration, Play Destroy, which opens with an intense, distorted guitar heavily reminiscent of Family Force 5's Earthquake. It gives way to a brighter acoustic backing track when it's time for Poppy to sing, but the heavier guitar keeps bringing itself in, eventually overtaking the cheerier parts and leading right into the closer, X, the start of which gets Poppy herself to say, "Ooh, heavy." It's a song with shredding guitars, blast beats, and screaming vocals to accompany Poppy's, well, pop style. X also marked the first time she sang alongside that kind of music, as opposed to it existing in another isolated part of a song. This shift all came pretty suddenly, but it was not yet complete. The Choke EP that followed Mi Girl was a more intense set of songs than was typical on her earlier albums, but it largely eschewed the rock sound with the obvious exception of the rager Scary Mask, and it was not until the first single for I Disagree dropped that we knew that Poppy had gone full-on kawaii metal. She called it poppy metal and thinks that she's sort of post-genre, but no, kawaii metal or cute metal is already a common-ish descriptor for this exact type of bizarre and lovely combination of bright and heavy, seemingly shifting genres every 30 seconds. Even the subject matter of concrete fits, with the way it shifts between the different meanings of the word, the dessert, and building material, depending on what the drums sound like at the time. It's a fun song that ends in this big, showy bit where the crowd is chanting her name, and it's kind of adorable, though it doesn't compare to seeing it live when everyone in the room is chanting for real. You gotta love it. That said, a Poppy concert is no longer a culty thing, at least no more than any other concert is a little culty. For one thing, there is an actual opener now, although that's really been true since her second major tour. For a while, she was actually traveling with Bring Me the Horizon and Sleeping with Sirens, but she's now gone a little more obscure by bringing Vows to Brooklyn Steel, an experimental industrial type duo that was a perfectly pleasant way to spend 45 minutes while the venue slowly filled up, but wasn't really the kind of thing that I'll pursue separately. The real change, though, comes in the disappearance of Poppy's persona, something that is evident from literally the second she comes on stage. Even if I hadn't heard about the ending of the Titanic-Sinclair partnership or noticed that my Poppy YouTube subscription no longer inundates me with weird near-daily ramblings, I would have known something had changed simply by seeing her hair. Although Pereira is not herself one, Poppy, the internet entity, has always been platinum blonde. It's part of the character. And the song Beach Blonde Baby off her debut album is dedicated to that. But no longer. The new Poppy wears her hair in dark braids, and though she still comes out in like a silver spacey type thing, it is a far cry from the elaborate costuming of her earlier shows. There are also no longer any Illuminati projections. The setup is simple. Her, a band, lights, some stairs up to a big LED box that does talk at one point, but really it's just not all that out there. I will admit that I missed the synchronized dancing of poppy.computer, particularly since that is such a substantial part of the appeal of other kawaii metal acts. But I did have fun seeing Poppy just do her own thing up there, uninhibited by some other person's conception of who and what she is supposed to be. And it's not like I wasn't getting the audiovisual incongruity I crave from my kawaii metal performances. Listening to Poppy's high-pitched voice telling the crowd that she wanted to see everyone in a circle before the start of Scary Mask got a full-on guffaw from me. And even if it wasn't the sort of murderous pit you might see at a more traditional show, folks were definitely moving, and I had no desire to be anywhere near it, so they must have been doing something right. The change in musical tone has had an interesting side effect in that she no longer plays any of her early stuff. Poppy.computer is totally gone from the set list, and all but the previously discussed final tracks of Am I a Girl are missing as well. So we got the entirety of the new album, as well as a few other recent ones, and a great throwback cover of a song that I haven't thought about in at least 15 years, but am now super into again. In that sense, the I Disagree tour feels like something from a newcomer who doesn't have a full catalog to draw on. And in many ways, that's really what this new iteration of Poppy is, a newcomer who is proving herself all over again. It's hard to fathom that this is the same person who just a few years ago was singing about making a video and not being able to find her microphone. But it's a change that I welcome, and I am quite excited to see where things go from here. I am absolutely down for more poppy metal records, but I mean, if she wants to go in a completely new direction again, that's fine too. I'd probably follow her off a cliff, because the truth is, even if the imagery is gone, the cult of Poppy never went anywhere. 8.4 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you particularly to my patrons, my mom, Hamrain Marco, Kat Saracata, Benjamin Schiff, Anthony Cole, at Blasian FMA, Magnolia Denton, and Elliot Fowler. If you like this video, that's great. If not, I'm sorry. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. I hope to see you next week.